Welcome to another exciting episode of the Business of Digital podcast, featuring your hosts, Matt Siltala and Dave Rohr. Hey guys, excited to join you on another one of these Business of Digital podcasts. Looking forward to chatting with you about our subject today. What we're going to talk about today is something that myself and Dave are constantly asked, and so we figured, hey, let's create a podcast and then we can reference it every time people ask us about it, and it kills so many birds with one stone. But let's do a virtual wave to Dave. How's it going, bud?
Hola. It is becoming winter.
Winter is coming.
It is.
Or
Actually,
here.
that's not until April. Game of Thrones isn't until April next year. It's like a 2-year wait. It's silly.
Crazy. Well,
So anyway.
I don't really know what winter is anyway, being in Phoenix, so
Yeah.
you have to let me know. So, you guys, what we wanted to chat about today is, and over the last week, I was asked this probably 4 different times by people. And so I figured, again, just as a good resource to everyone and as a resource to Dave and I to be able to hand over to people or direct them to this podcast, because I know that this is something that Dave's asked all the time too, is we are always asked how to start a business or how to start an online business or what should I do to get a business set up properly. It's some form of that, and I'm sure Dave has a version of the question that's asked to him as well. But it's some form of, how, do you have any tips for me to start in a business? And it's typically followed up by, I don't have much money, or I have a low budget, or, I'm on a budget, I have a little bit to spend. But again, it usually is surrounding that. And I don't know if is your experience a little different with that or about the same, Dave?
Probably the same, or it's just I don't know what I want to do. So what's the minimum I need to do for this side project?
Exactly.
To protect myself or to get it going, because a lot of people, my agency and my other side projects are all side projects. It's always what do I need to do legally, but also just from an online digital kind of presence, what's the minimum I need?
Now, as a disclaimer, Dave and I are not lawyers.
Or accountants.
We are just basically telling you guys what we do and what works for us. We're not giving you any legal advice. We're not telling you to set up a sole proprietor. We're not telling you to set up an LLC or an S Corp or whatever it might be. What we're doing is just kind of giving you like the steps of what you need to figure out yourself. And, for us, and again, this is the business personally, Avalanche Media, as well as my separate entities, Dave. I do have corporations set up, and the reason that I do that is because it protects me legally. If something happens, let's say, God forbid, something really bad happens and I make someone mad and they try to sue me for everything they get, well, they can't go after anything of mine personally, okay? They can only go after what the business has. And so, again, they can't take like your house or your car or your personal things like that. So, obviously, when someone comes to me and they're like, hey, what do I do to get started? That's one of the first things that I talk to them about. I say, whether you go and do some research online or talk to a lawyer, or if you know someone, I think LegalZoom has some pretty good options as far as like research and looking and seeing what you want to do. But definitely setting up some sort of an entity so you can then start to do all the other steps that we're going to tell you to do or walk you through, because you need to set up the business and make sure that's all taken care of, because trust me, it's going to save you tax wise and tax stuff down the road. And then you're going to need that information when you go and try to set up a business account, because you definitely do want to keep that stuff separately. There's a lot of tax benefits to owning a business. There's a lot of write-offs. There's a lot of things that you can do when you're legal that you can't do when you're just when you don't have anything set up, or you're quote unquote a sole proprietor or whatever. And so those would be some of my first steps. And before we really get into the next part of it, I don't know if Dave has anything to add to that, but business name, so you can then go in and start to figure out what you want to do with your money and banking and stuff like that.
I think the biggest mistake that I made is I read a lot online and I poked around and I set stuff up, but before I ever started anything, I should have gone to an accountant.
Okay. Perfect.
That was my biggest oops, was not getting that stuff straightened away first and foremost before really anything else, because I already knew what I was going to go out on my own and start the thing, and I should have even done it before when I was just consulting and just gone, hey, what do I need to do?
And because they can guide you, and they can give you all of those, like what I was talking about, the different directions for what's better for you with what you're doing in your personal situation with your business for those tax purposes, correct?
Yeah, and I had one long ago, and I would always fold out my other little projects under it, but then I let that one go because I just stopped working on that series of projects. And what I should have done was gone and created a new holding company for all of my projects and stuff and just rolled everything into it. They were all such little side projects and little things that, they might make a little money, they might lose some money, but I could have been protected and I could have been writing off that stuff. It was so small in some cases, but in other cases I would still get checks from, AdSense or affiliate stuff or from other, client projects. And I just wasn't set up properly. And that's always, if I could go back in time for my own business stuff, I would go and kick myself really hard.
Yeah.
And get that stuff in order.
Well, and I think a lot of times people don't do it because they're afraid that, oh, it costs me so much to do this or set up a business or that. And they don't realize, how false that is. I mean, it doesn't cost a whole lot to get it set up, and you're protecting yourself. And even if you're spending a couple $100, and in most cases it doesn't even cost that much to incorporate, but if God forbid, like we talked about, something happens and you get sued, or it's just that added layer of protection. And so good point there, bringing up the accountant, because that's one of the things that when we really started getting serious, even back in the day, Dream Systems Media and Avalanche Media, we were starting to work really closely with accountants and having them help us and teach us and get us the right, get us on that right path. And so, again, I'm talking with people that are coming in, like for example, several of the ones that have come to me lately have been housewives their whole life. The last 18 years, they've been spending raising kids, and they have a good idea and they want to just start selling an online, or they want to set up a business, or their friends are doing that RF stuff, Ronin Fields or LuLaRoe or whatever it might be, and they want to get into it, and their questions are, what do I do to make sure that it's legit and legal? And so those are some good first steps. Now, what would you suggest, Dave, be their next steps after that, as far as, hey, we have the accountant stuff set in place and the business account, and we're covered professionally? What would you say would be one of their next steps?
If before you start working and thinking about your business name, come up with ideas, use Knowem, KNOWEM.com, and Domainer, DOMAI.NR. It's a weird one. Mm-hmm. And check and see if the social profiles are available and the domain.
Okay.
That's, for me, before you start going, oh, this is what my logo to look like, or this is what I want my company name to look like, to be, and start, finalizing that, go make sure it's actually available.
And that protects you reputation-wise as well, making sure that you can claim all those and nobody snags them up from you, or, let's say that you get out there and you get going and you make someone mad and they're like, oh, look, they haven't claimed their Twitter. I'm going to go claim their Twitter and make it difficult for them, or, things like that.
Before I ever start a project, I probably have 10 different Twitter accounts and other things and domains all sitting already done, even though I haven't started it, just because if I ever do move on to that project or do start it, I already have everything and I already know I can do it. And I can also then sell it all as one package too. But yes, I at least have it all, so that if I ever decide to finally get off my butt and do those projects, I already know that I have the Twitter accounts, the YouTube accounts, the domains, and when I let domains drop, then I let the social profiles usually drop too. Just
And you know,
one less thing to worry about.
this might be taking things a little extreme, and I don't know if you do this, but if I have projects that I feel are going to be really big, or that are going to go places, I'll usually snag up probably 10 or 15 domains of the negative ones, as far as like at the end of it sucks, or F this and then blank, or reviews or things like that. So like those negative, because again, think about all the people that can search for your name and how they can search for it. And so a lot of times that's what I'll do as well, just to protect the reputation. I don't know if that's something that you include in your process as well.
I would if I ever got them off the ground further.
Right.
Just
So
because
and that's kind of my point, because like totally, like there's projects that I have, like, I don't care, go ahead and buy all the domains about it sucks that you want. Not going to affect me one bit. But when it's a project that has some exactly, then we'll do stuff like that.
Yeah, and I'll usually at least get one version. I mean, I've talked about it before, but like for this podcast, I have a couple versions of the domain, and then so we had it for 2 years now. I let a couple of them drop recently. Good luck trying to figure out which ones. But it was more variations on the names that we didn't go with.
Right.
Is what I let go. So I still probably have like 4 or 5, but I think I had like 4 or 5 others when we were trying to decide. And before we finalized, I was just like, yeah, we'll just reserve them all for a year and then we'll let them drop. So, and I did that recently for one project where I was like, I went and, I got the email and was like, hey, do you want to renew all these 7 domains? And I was like, what was this project? And I kind of looked it over again and I was like, no, I don't quite need all of them.
Yeah.
I was like, that was a little bit grandiose of scale that I was thinking. So I kind of chiseled it down and it saved me, $50.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
And that's good. And so even up to this point, everything that we've suggested to you guys is still, within a few $100s and very doable. It does not cost a whole lot to purchase domains. They're, and even the hosting for your site. And so moving on though, I would say one of the next steps is, once people figure out that they have their domains and they have their names and all that, the social profiles and whatnot can be secured, then you need to move on to the branding side of it. And I don't know if there's, and again, at this point, I'm assuming that your product. Maybe Dave could talk to, what he mentioned earlier about those that are like, I want to do something, and maybe what their next steps could be. But as far as I'm concerned, at this point, you should know what you're wanting to do, and so then you could jump into the branding side of it. But maybe Dave just addressed the fact of what you had mentioned. If people come to you and are like, I'm not sure what I want to do, like, where do you send them from there?
Well, to just jump back one thing, I just thought about it. Even if you're an influencer type person, or you have a YouTube channel, or you're only on Instagram, honestly, go and at least, hopefully, I assume you have all your social channels, go and register your domain.
Yeah.
So just, whatever your project is, whatever your personal brand is, even if it's just for you yourself, please go and register all of your social accounts and all of your, domain accounts, because you might one day want them and then you can't have them.
And people get serious about this too. It was funny. I was recently in Hawaii with a couple of colleagues, and we were talking about some different ideas. And we had mentioned something about just a different URL. They went and looked it up right there at that moment, and I think purchased probably like 7 or 8 domains based on like a simple, like right there on their phone, done, boom. And so that's how important it is my point. So, all right. So assuming that all that's taken care of and we're progressed to this point, if you have anyone that that does website design or anything like that, if you're just curious where to get started, there's lots of options. Like, again, depending on, and Dave can talk better to this with the different options that are out there with hosting, but a lot of the hosting options make it really easy for you to set up a WordPress site where you can kind of customize it a little bit, and as long as you have a logo and some sort of branding. And so that's kind of why I'm jumping into this side of it. If you have money to spend to have someone do something completely custom for you, especially if you start getting into, you're going to have a need for shopping carts and a shopping system and money payments and things like that. You're talking merchant accounts, set up and things like that. And a lot of that stuff can be helped with the domain where you've registered it and hosting and stuff like that. But again, I see a lot of people use like 99 Designs. There's a lot of places where you could, crowdsource and have people help you. And I've seen a lot of really good projects come out of places like that as well. And so, if you do have a designer at your disposal, then definitely use someone that can do something for you that's more custom. But if not, you do have options that are free. And so a lot of, again, I'm giving this more as a lot of the people that I talk to, and I know that their budgets are smaller, so they're going to be looking for the free hosting or the very cheap hosting. They're going to look for the the easy to use WordPress type sites or Shopify or something that has a shopping cart perhaps, and then where it's easy to just kind of plug and play, if you will, a logo and your branding and stuff like that. And so if you can, because you're going to need that for business cards, you're going to need that for setting up that side of it, passing out and letting people know about who you are and things like that. And so to this point, I don't know if there's anything that you wanted to add to that, Dave.
Clearly Bob wants to talk.
Hey, Bob.
Bob, leave the other cat alone.
That's right. Bear was talking to us earlier, so.
Good Lord. One part of me says you can skimp on your logo if you're not going to do cards and you just don't care, and just create something in Canva, or GIMP is a free tool, or don't do it in Paint.
Very good idea talking about Canva. In fact, I have a freshman at ASU that's just barely started playing around with Canva, and she showed me a logo she created for a project the other day, and it was just as good as anything that I've seen from anybody professional. So good for you for mentioning that one.
You can go to like a Fiverr, nothing's really $5 at Fiverr, or 99 Designs, and there's tons of different ones out there. I used one of them for my brewery thing. For Northside Metrics, I went to some design friends that have a company here in Chicago and used them. So they created my design and some other stuff for me, because I wanted to make sure it was professional, and I was very, very picky about that one. The brewery one, I didn't quite know what I wanted, so I just crowdsourced it and then,
perfect.
Got something back that way pretty cheap. But yeah, you can throw up a site, do, MVP, minimum viable, just to get it up there. It's basic hosting. We've talked about it before. We're not big fans of the Squarespace, Wix's type thing, but if you just want to get something up, or you don't want to have to spend a lot of time coding and messing around with stuff, honestly, to just get up and get going, those do tie into merchant account type stuff. So it is very easy, and it can get you going, and it gets your website up there. Don't host it on a free place where it's your name .something.com.
Yeah.
Or something.wordpress.
Own your own domain name.
Own your own domain and host it yourself. It'll cost you anywhere from $2 or $3, up to $20.
And
but yeah, just host it and get something up there.
Yeah. And again, a lot of these places that we're talking about, they have easy to use plugins, and also if you're a part of their service, for the most part, a lot of them do offer some sort of technical support. Now, again, we're trying to give you the best options here for limited budgets. If you have the budget, if you have all the budget in the world to create yourself, just go back and forth with a designer and hash out logos and just design concepts for your website and things like that, you're looking at the difference of spending a few $100 versus, 5, 6, even tens of thousands of dollars. Okay, we've had projects, I would say typically for the normal smaller mom and pop project, you'd be, for any kind of custom design, you're looking between $1,500 to $3,500 for something like that. But then when you start to get into something more complex, shopping cart systems, tying it into, I'm losing my train of thought of the different kind of back-end systems, but basically, tying into systems that can run it like CRMs and things like that. This is where you're talking about a lot more money. Okay. And so I guess it's just at this point you have to decide what level am I going to be spending into this. But I'm just, again, giving you guys ideas. Most of the smaller agencies that I work with that do good work with website design hey, I don't have a huge budget, again, be prepared to spend between 1,500 to 3,500. If you want something that's more robust, completely custom, things like that, look between spending at least 10,000. And so we can give you different examples of stuff like that if you guys give us some feedback and really want to know something whenever you're listening to this podcast. If you just add us or message us, we can let you know there. But again, there's just lots of different options depending on what your budget is. But let's say, all right, we get past that, and we do have, we're up and running, and we have some kind of a business, and we have our logo up there and things like that. One of the best ways to start spreading the word, and I saw something the other day on Facebook, and it was, I loved it. In fact, I'm going to pull it up right now and see if I can find it for you. But a friend of mine posted this, and it was something that kind of spoke to me, talking about small business owners. Hopefully I can find it. It said, to all my self-employed small business owner friends. So again, bear with me, taking some time to read this really quick, but it basically talks about how, Rihanna releases a lip gloss, people buy it. Michael Jordan puts on some new shoes, people buy it. Dr. Dre has headphones, people buy it, blah, 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 blah. So it's saying family and friends, if you have someone that a family or friend that starts a new business, people always want to be negative and say, I'm sure it's not going to work, or I'll give it 6 months, or I bet they're more expensive, or whatever. Lots of negatives when people do stuff like that. I'm even one of them. Anytime my friends start one of those LuLaRoe business or the Roden Fields, I'm like, oh, great, I got to see all these images in my feed again. But remember, they're just trying, the thing that this lady posted was, we can find a million reasons not to support someone we know. But remember, when you support a small business, you're helping families feed their kids, pay a mortgage, adding a few more, besides adding a few more zeros to celebrity's bank account is what the thing goes on. So it says, next time you see your friend posting about their business, give them a quick like, share, or comment. You don't have to buy their product or service, but it helps them gain more exposure, and it helps their business. And so again, that would be one of my suggestions of where to go next, if you will, with once you have it up and you don't have a huge budget and you want to start spreading the word. Again, that's kind of what my final tip would be, getting out there, because a lot of this was, hey, what are the steps that I need to do to get starting a business? We're not really going to get into how to go about the running a business, but we've taken you through all the steps up to this point, even giving you some ideas to start getting the word out, and those would kind of be my final thoughts on this. Dave?
Yeah, I think even, if you're not going to be launching something for sure, just, you can get a single hosting account and put tons of your projects on it. You can, get a domain pretty cheap. You can get social media profiles for free.
Yep.
At least get that started. Talk to an accountant, talk to your lawyer. And, from the start, it'll be a little bit of money, but if you are serious about that small project, or your branding, or if you're an influencer, or if you have a YouTube thing, at least make sure to protect yourself as much as you can, and to do it right from the start.
Got to spend money to make money, as they say, right?
Doesn't take a lot, but yeah, it does take some.
All right. Well, hopefully that gives you guys a little bit of direction and ideas. And so if there's any other questions that you guys have on this topic, please reach out to myself or Dave. You know how to find us online. We'll drop all the info and the links that, in the blog post that we talked about. We'll give you all those links and stuff. But for Dave Rohr with Northside Metrics, I'm Matt Siltel with Avalanche Media. And thanks, guys, for listening to this one. Bye.